Did you know there's a simple technique that will make your pepper plants produce fruit non-stop, all year round? For years, I grew peppers the traditional way. I'd plant seedlings, nurture them with great care, harvest maybe 5 or 6 peppers, and then the plant would stop bearing fruit. It would look unhealthy, and I'd have to pull it out and start all over. It was incredibly frustrating. Plus, peppers are quite expensive at the market. In Mexico, depending on the color and season, they can easily fetch between 70 and 100 pesos per kilogram. I longed to have fresh peppers readily available, but maintaining a consistent harvest seemed impossible. That is, until one day during a visit to a small farm deep in Sinaloa, I met an 81-year-old gentleman who had giant pepper bushes absolutely laden with fruit. Some of these plants had been producing continuously for over 2 years. I was amazed. I asked him what his secret was. He smiled and replied, "My friend, it's not a secret. It's a method. Peppers can produce fruit year-round if you know how to care for them. I'll show you." He then revealed a technique so straightforward, so logical, I couldn't believe I hadn't stumbled upon it myself before. I applied it exactly as he instructed. Today, 2 years later, I have 3 pepper plants that bear fruit without interruption. Every week, I gather fresh, robust, and flavorful peppers. I haven't had to replant since. Today, here on the Forbidden Roots channel, I will guide you through this method step by step, because sometimes the most valuable wisdom isn't found in modern textbooks, but in the hands of those who have observed the earth for decades. Before I share this technique with you, I need to explain why peppers typically stop producing fruit after a few harvests. Once you understand the problem, the solution becomes much clearer. Most people assume peppers are a single-season plant. They plant it, harvest a few fruits, notice the plant weakening, and conclude its cycle is complete. They pull it out and start anew. But that's precisely where the mistake lies. Peppers are not annuals, they are perennials. This means with proper care, they can live for several years and continue to produce fruit. The issue isn't with the plant's nature, but with how we've been accustomed to growing them. After the initial harvests, the plant appears fatigued. It has expended considerable energy producing fruits. Older leaves begin to yellow, some stems weaken, growth becomes uneven, and the overall appearance is no longer as vibrant as it was at the start. Most people interpret these signals as a disease or the end of the plant's life. However, in many instances, it's neither. What the plant is actually signaling is not that it's finished, but that it needs rejuvenation. In nature, hardly any plant bears fruit continuously for months on end without any pause. Plants have their own rhythms. They grow, they bloom, they bear fruit. They rest, they reorganize, and then they begin producing again. Yet, in our home gardens, we often demand uninterrupted fruiting, denying them the opportunity for recovery. We desire peppers every week, but fail to provide the plant with the necessary care to sustain such an effort. This is when exhaustion sets in. The root system is still alive. The stem still holds potential, but the above-ground parts age, the internal balance is disrupted, and productivity declines. The method I'm about to teach you works precisely because it doesn't fight against the plant's biology. Instead, it harnesses this biology, respects the natural cycle, but guides it in a more intelligent manner. Instead of allowing the plant to degrade for months until it becomes useless, you intervene at the opportune moment, rejuvenate it, and restore it to a phase of active growth and fruiting. This is the essence of it all. The primary technique is called rejuvenating pruning. And yes, it sounds more drastic than it actually is. This was the first lesson that venerable gentleman from Sinaloa imparted to me. He told me that if I wanted to harvest peppers for years to come, I needed to stop being afraid of pruning. Because the major error many people make is becoming overly attached to the plant's size, believing that more branches and leaves equate to better performance. But this isn't always true. A plant covered in old leaves, long branches, and a tired structure might appear large yet yield very little. Conversely, a well-pruned plant with new shoots and a revitalized structure can produce significantly more. The initial pruning is typically done after the first substantial harvest. This usually occurs about 2 months after transplanting, when the plant has already yielded its initial fruits and is showing signs of fatigue. At this point, using sharp, clean pruning shears, you cut back the main branches by approximately half. Yes, exactly as it sounds. This isn't about nipping off a tip. It's about significantly reducing the structure to encourage the plant to produce vigorous new growth. Ideally, each cut should be made just above a node, that point on the stem where leaves or side shoots emerge. If the cut is made at a slight angle, even better, as this allows water to run off, facilitating easier wound healing. Concurrently, you remove yellowing leaves, dead branches, damaged parts, and any weak shoots that are not contributing. When you're finished, the plant may appear quite bare. This is often the most daunting moment, as it feels like you've just destroyed weeks of hard work. However, this is precisely where renewal begins. Within a few days, new shoots will emerge from the cut points. In 1 to 2 weeks, the plant will transform its appearance entirely. New leaves will emerge, greener, more vigorous, and more efficient. The young shoots will possess greater strength, a better capacity for flowering, and a higher potential for developing healthy fruits. Instead of dragging along an aging structure, the plant starts anew from an established foundation. This is where the power lies. You aren't starting from seed again. You are leveraging a plant that already possesses a robust root system, a developed trunk, and a responsive capacity. Following this pruning, typically within 45 to 60 days, new flowers will appear, leading to another batch of fruits. And here's the crucial part. This isn't a one-time pruning. It's a cycle. Each time the fruiting phase concludes and the plant again shows signs of fatigue, you repeat the process. You don't allow the plant to fall into a deep decline. You don't wait until it's truly ailing. You act proactively. This is how you keep it young. This is how you prevent premature aging. This is how you transform a plant that most would discard into a continuous source of harvest. This is the technique that changes everything. However, for this system to truly succeed, the plant must begin on a solid footing from the outset. People often underestimate the importance of the initial stage, but if from day one the plant is in a small pot, in poor soil, or with insufficient light, it will never develop the resilience needed for long-term fruiting. First consideration: root space. Peppers can adapt to containers, yes, but if you intend to keep them for an extended period, they require adequate volume. A deep and wide pot is paramount. Ideally, its diameter and depth should be at least 40 centimeters. If you're planting in the ground, even better, provided the soil structure and drainage are good. In open ground, it's advisable to maintain a spacing of at least half a meter between plants to ensure air circulation and allow roots to expand without excessive competition. Second consideration, the substrate. Peppers thrive in rich, loose soil that retains moisture well but doesn't become waterlogged. A simple yet highly effective mix can be prepared using garden soil, compost or vermicompost, and a portion of sand or a material that improves drainage. Compost provides organic matter and soil life. Vermicompost offers structure, microorganisms, and readily available nutrients. Sand prevents compaction. It's also beneficial to incorporate a slow-release phosphorus source, such as bone meal, to stimulate root development and future flowering. When the soil is well prepared from the start, the plant enters the system with a much stronger foundation. Third consideration, planting depth. Many people plant peppers too shallowly. However, if you bury a portion of the stem up to the base of the first leaves, the plant can develop additional roots on that buried section. This significantly strengthens the entire plant. Fourth consideration, initial watering. For the first 2 weeks after transplanting, the soil should be kept consistently moist to allow the plant to establish without stress. This doesn't mean overwatering, but rather maintaining a steady moisture level. Then, once the plant has adapted, watering should be more deliberate, occurring when the top few centimeters of the substrate have dried out. Peppers suffer from both underwatering and overwatering. Repeated droughts cause flower drop, deformed fruits, and general stress. Excessive water promotes the development of fungi, root rot, and weakened roots. Consistency is key. Fifth consideration, light. Peppers need direct sunlight, far more than some might realize. For robust fruiting, they require a minimum of 6 hours of sunlight daily. In general, they respond better to ample light, provided they receive adequate water. In partial shade, they can survive and even appear relatively healthy, but their fruit production will significantly decrease. Sixth consideration, support. A plant that is intended to live for years and bear fruit repeatedly requires support. Don't wait until it's leaning or breaking. A simple stake installed early on helps keep the main stem upright and prevents damage when the plant is laden with peppers. Once the plant is well established, the system's calendar comes into play. And this is where something we often emphasize on the Forbidden Roots channel becomes relevant. Continuity depends not only on knowing what to do, but also on knowing when to do it. The first rejuvenating prune, as I've mentioned, typically occurs after the initial harvest. Subsequently, each new productive phase concludes and gives way to another pruning. In practice, this often translates to a cycle of approximately 3 months between prunings, although this can vary slightly depending on climate, variety, and growth rate. The important thing is to observe the plant. If it has completed a major harvest, if it appears weighed down and tired, if the foliage is aging and vigor is waning, this is the opportune moment. You don't need to guess from a rigid calendar. You need to learn to read the plant's language. Now imagine this applied not to one plant, but to 3. This is the system I adopted after confirming its effectiveness. 3 plants, but staggered in their phases. One is pruned in January, another in February, and the third in March. When April arrives, you return to the first. In this way, while one is developing new shoots, another is flowering, and the third is maturing. The result is impressive. You are no longer dependent on a single abundant harvest followed by weeks of waiting. You have a continuous flow. Each stage is distributed over time. Suddenly, what seemed impossible, having peppers year-round, becomes entirely achievable. Not through magic, not through miracle fertilizers, not through secret seeds, but through organization, observation, and care. But there is a second pillar upon which all of this rests: feeding. And here lies the true secret that many overlook. Rejuvenating pruning can stimulate new growth, but if the soil is depleted, the plant has nothing to draw upon. Peppers are demanding. Every fruit produced extracts resources from the system: nitrogen for leaves and growth, phosphorus for roots and flowering, potassium for fruit quality and resilience, as well as calcium, magnesium, and other elements essential for maintaining balance. If you only harvest and never replenish, the soil becomes depleted, and a plant in depleted soil cannot sustain continuous fruiting. Therefore, immediately after each pruning, a restorative feeding is highly recommended. At this stage, the plant needs resources to sprout new shoots and rebuild its above-ground structure. A combination of vermicompost, a small amount of bone meal, and a bit of wood ash works exceptionally well. Vermicompost provides gentle nitrogen, microbial life, and structure. Bone meal supplies phosphorus and calcium. Ash provides potassium and minerals, always in moderation to avoid disrupting the pH balance. This mixture, applied around the base and followed by good watering, sends a clear signal to the plant. It's time to grow again with full vigor. About 15 days later, as new shoots begin to appear, it's beneficial to supplement with additional organic matter. During the vegetative phase, when the plant is forming new leaves and branches, nitrogen is important, but not in excess. You don't want just a leafy plant. You want a balanced one. Then, as flowers begin to form, the focus shifts. At this point, it's advisable to reduce overly high nitrogen levels and emphasize phosphorus and potassium. This transition helps the plant avoid getting stuck in pure green growth and begin investing in flowering and fruit set. During fruit development, potassium remains key, as it is closely linked to the swelling, flavor, density, and overall health of the peppers. If additionally, you have access to liquid biostimulants or a well-prepared organic extract, applying it monthly in diluted form with watering can provide a significant boost. Liquid nutrients are absorbed quickly and help sustain periods of high demand. Between one pruning and the next, there are also daily tasks that seem minor but determine the outcome. First is watering consistency. Peppers do not tolerate abrupt changes well. Days of drought followed by copious watering usually result in stress, flower drop, cracked fruits, or uneven growth. Second is plant tidiness. Yellow leaves, dry sections, and damaged tissue should be removed not just for aesthetics, but because they are no longer beneficial and can become entry points for problems. Third is the control of unwanted shoots. Sometimes very low, weak, or poorly positioned shoots emerge, which divert energy without forming a useful structure. It's best to remove these to concentrate strength where it's most needed. Fourth is pest monitoring. Peppers can attract aphids, whiteflies, mites, and other unwelcome visitors. If you inspect your plants once a week, paying attention to tender shoots and the undersides of leaves, you can detect a problem before it becomes severe. And this makes all the difference because a minor infestation is easy to manage, while an established one is far more challenging. Gentle methods, such as potassium soap or neem oil, are usually sufficient when applied promptly. Fifth is cold protection. Although in many regions of Mexico the climate is conducive to growing, there are times and areas where cold nights significantly hinder peppers. If temperatures drop too low, plants feel it immediately. In such cases, A light cover at night can help keep the system active. Sixth is fertilizer diversity. It's not advisable to rely solely on one source. Alternating compost, ash, biostimulants, and other organic supplements improves nutrition and maintains greater soil balance. The harvesting method is also important. Many people, in their haste, pluck the fruit by hand, inadvertently damaging the stem or even the branch. The correct way is to cut it with shears, leaving a small portion of the stem attached to the pepper. This minimizes damage and keeps the plant healthier. Furthermore, harvesting should be done in a timely manner. Peppers can be harvested green once they have reached a good size, or left to ripen to their final color. Both options are acceptable. What you should avoid is leaving overripe fruits on the plant for too long, as the plant continues to expend energy on a fruit that has completed its cycle, and this delays new flowering. Regular harvesting stimulates continuity. In a sense, by harvesting, you are telling the plant that the work of this phase is complete, and it can begin the next. Variety also plays a role. Generally, traditional, open-pollinated, stable varieties adapt better to this type of long-term care. Varieties too focused on rapid industrial production sometimes respond less favorably to continuous renewal because they were bred for a different logic. One big season and no more. Local varieties, or more traditional lines, however, usually possess a better capacity for regrowth, greater resilience to fluctuations, and a more balanced ratio between vigor and yield. This doesn't mean only one variety is suitable. It means if you have a choice, it's worth looking at materials that are closer to natural farming and less dependent on industrial schedules. Nevertheless, problems can arise, and part of the learning process is interpreting them. If a plant fails to produce new shoots after pruning, it most commonly indicates a lack of nutrients, prior weakening, or a serious watering issue. If flowers appear but drop without setting fruit, causes can include water stress, excessive heat, or poor pollination. If peppers are small or deformed, there's usually a nutritional imbalance or difficulties with water management. If there are spots, wilting, or soft patches, you need to check ventilation, excess moisture, and potential fungal diseases. None of this means the method doesn't work. It means the plant is communicating with you, and the sooner you learn to listen, the more stable your harvest will be. Now, let's talk about savings, because that's also important. Constantly buying peppers at the market is not cheap, especially when you desire good quality fruit. But the primary value of this system isn't solely economic. It's in taste, practicality, and even emotion. A pepper ripened on the vine and picked at its prime has a much deeper flavor than one picked green for logistical reasons. The texture is superior, the aroma more intense, and the satisfaction of walking out to your yard, patio, or garden and picking what you will prepare that very day is incomparable. When a plant ceases to be a disposable crop and becomes a companion for years, your approach to cultivation changes. You are no longer solely chasing quantity. You are building continuity. This is what I truly understood when I revisited that gentleman from Sinaloa a year later. His plants were still there, large, robust, laden with fruit. I asked him which one was the oldest. He pointed to one and said, "This one is 4 years old. It has never stopped producing fruit." And that sentence has stayed with me because it encapsulates everything. He wasn't talking about a miracle. He was talking about a proper relationship with the plant, not discarding it when it tires, not confusing fatigue with finality, not treating it as a single-season disposable item, but learning to renew it, nourish it, and sustain it so it continues to give. In an era where almost everything is replaced, growing this way holds something profoundly valuable. Pruning when it's time, feeding when it's time, waiting when it's time. And this, though it may seem small, is a form of knowledge that is worth its weight in gold. That is precisely why I wanted to bring this method to the Forbidden Roots channel, because it perfectly aligns with the channel's essence. We are not here to repeat empty formulas or chase trendy solutions. We are here to revive simple, logical, and powerful methods that live in the experience of those who have spent their lives growing. Methods that depend not on spending more, but on understanding more. Methods that restore self-sufficiency. Methods that transform an ordinary plant into a perpetual source of food. If you are going to put this into practice, start slowly. Observe one plant. Learn its rhythm. See how it responds to pruning, how it produces new shoots, how long it takes to flower. And then, what happens when you improve its feeding? What transformations occur once you achieve consistent watering? Subsequently, upon deciphering your plant's needs, introduce supplementary elements to establish a staggered harvest cycle. This is when you will uncover a crucial insight. True resilience doesn't stem from increased pressure, but rather from more attentive cultivation. Therefore, the next time your pepper bush appears depleted after multiple yields, resist the urge to discard it immediately. Observe it with renewed attention. It may not have reached its final limit. Perhaps it simply awaits a guiding hand to revitalize it. Should this guidance prove valuable, subscribe to Proven Roots. Here, we are dedicated to reviving time-tested methods that endure. Cultivate with patience, heed the earth's cues, honor the natural rhythms, and join us again in the next Proven Roots installment.